We have dilemmas for game week 5. Now, game week 4 weren't the best. I'm going to look at my team in this video, and more importantly, I'm going to look at what I'm thinking about going forward with game week 5 and a potential wildcard. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's start with the defense, and now you can see where the issues start straight away. I had Chelsea against Arsenal. I didn't expect anything. To be honest, Nottingham Forest are probably a bit more resolute than I would have thought. Ange didn't set up the normal Ange style of football that we would have expected. But at the same time, he's only been here a couple of days. So it was disappointing not to get save point at least. But Arsenal were always going to win that game. They were the much better side. Defensively, Madueke was causing Nottingham Forest all sort of problems. But listen, what can you do? This next one, Pedro Porro. This is where I am very disappointed. Because when Tottenham's centre-backs are getting goal contributions, you would have expected Porro to at least try and pick up something. But I'll be honest, his first 4 games of the season, he's returned in every single one of them. But at the same time, it just didn't fill me with a lot of confidence when I watched the West Ham game. Like, did he really get himself into dangerous opportunities to get across the ball? There was one right at the end for Kudos, I think it was. Overall, what we expected happened in terms of set pieces straight away taken off. Xavi Simons is on them. So now, that makes Pedro Porro a worse asset, which is why going forward into game week 5, of course, Tottenham's fixtures are not bad in terms of their Brighton next, Wolves after that, Leeds after that. But at the same time, what's the benefit of owning Pedro Porro now and spending the extra million over a Van de Ven, for example, who's 4.5, 4.6? That is something I have to think about now. Next, Cucurella. This one, again, very, very disappointing because that Brentford fixture on paper was a very good fixture for me and Cucurella owners to target. But then he got benched. Of course, Cucurella did play in the international break, so maybe we should have expected that. But we had no inkling that was going to happen. Hato obviously played. Defensively, I don't think Chelsea's dynamics was the same with Fofana on the right, Hato on the left. I feel like they really, really struggled at times. But it's a difficult one with Cucurella because at the same time, when he came on, we saw the dangerous positions that he got himself into. There was one where I can't remember who played the ball across. And I think it was Coyote on the right back for Brentford that got a little touch. Otherwise, it would have been a Cucurella literally open goal for him to slot it in. So that is slightly disappointing. I'm not too sure what I want to do with Cucurella going forward because obviously the fixtures are mixed for Chelsea. They have United next, Brighton after that in game week 6, and then Liverpool in game week 7. So that's not the easiest set of 3. So that is something I do have to think about. Potentially, like I said, am I thinking about a wild card? Maybe, but I also do have 3 free transfers. Richard, clean sheet against Sunderland. I expected that. Listen, the other Crystal Palace assets didn't do much better in terms of Munoz, Lacroix. So I'm relatively happy with that. I can't really complain. Palace solid like we expected. Let's move over to the midfield, and that's where it gets really disappointing. So now this is where we get onto the midfield, and this again, very, very disappointing. First of all, Elliot Anderson finally got DEFCON points. I think it was 14 or 15 defensive contributions he got. I expected him to get defensive contributions in this game. I was pretty certain. I said it before in my team selection video. And listen, like I said, DEFCON adds or ups your floor of your team really. And that's what Elliot Anderson did. I'm still relatively happy owning him. The Liverpool assets, very disappointing. Of course, Salah, 18 points, 9 points if you didn't captain him. Listen, as I said, 90-minute man on penalties. He's on the pitch right at the end. Liverpool get a penalty. It was a penalty. Hannibal's silly decision from him to move his arm, really. But at the same time, Liverpool that game, and I'm talking about Salah and Gakpo, I thought were really, really, let's say, lackluster. You expected against Burnley for Liverpool to hit them for 3, 4. That didn't really happen. They had a couple chances in terms of Gakpo crossing the ball in. But overall, it weren't like it was a game where Dubravka was man of the match, for example, that Liverpool were all over Burnley. The keeper was making so many saves and it looked like it wasn't going to be the day. I just thought Liverpool looked a bit poor, and obviously they made a couple changes at half-time. Szoboszlai obviously moving further forward with Connor Bradley coming back at right back. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm slightly concerned. Obviously, the thing is with Salah, he has inevitability in terms of he's always a 90-minute man on penalties playing for one of the best attacks in the league. But at the same time, when you watch Salah, really, really disappointing. Gakpo, like I said it in my previous games where he has returned, where I feel like I've got very fortunate with Gakpo's returns. In terms of some of his returns have just been a 5-yard pass and, for example, a Gravenberch goal from the outside of the box. So, it's interesting. Iliman Ndiaye is someone, listen, he got 5 points because of DEFCON. But if you watch the Everton game, I was very, very impressed. And it's not just him. Grealish on the other side, I think, caused Aston Villa a lot of problems. How Aston Villa walked out of that game with a point is honestly incredible, because Everton were causing so many problems. And Ndiaye probably should have even got an assist in the first 2 minutes. He played the ball back to Better. Better mishit it. Listen, that sums up Everton in my eyes. I think Everton, attacking-wise, look very, very promising. But I just think Better slightly lets them down in terms of his finishing in front of goal, because his hold-up play is not bad, but I'm still very happy owning Ndiaye. Of course, there's going to be that element in Ndiaye, Grealish debate. Ndiaye probably on penalties, Grealish a bit more on the ball in terms of he looks like he's going to create more. But Ndiaye, obviously a very good threat. And David Moyes, after the game, spoke about it as well, how impressive element in Ndiaye and Grealish were. So listen, going forward, if I don't wildcard in game week 5, or whenever I do plan to wildcard, Element Ndiaye or an Everton asset will still probably be in my team. Bruno Fernandes, I'll be honest, Manchester United got torn to pieces. Bruno Fernandes couldn't get anywhere near the ball in terms of when Man City were knocking it around. And that was very disappointing, because, listen, this was a game where you probably would have expected Bruno DEFCON points in terms of United are not going to have much of the ball when, listen, City haven't clicked, but at the same time, City look good. But more importantly, I think Erling Haaland look good. And let's talk about the attackers, because that's where I think it links nicely into it. So this is why I wanted to talk about the attack, because obviously I have Ollie Watkins and João Pedro still in my team. And Watkins, will talk about him, obviously. But I have free transfers. I have a route to Erling Haaland. Obviously, Game Week 5 is a bit difficult in terms of they have Arsenal. Do I really want to bring Erling Haaland against the best defence in the Premier League? The answer is probably no. But Game Week 6, obviously, they have Burnley. That was initially going into the season a week that said I wanted to free hit. But looking into it now, they have been... I've got free transfers right now. I could have 4 going into Game Week 6. So I have a route to Haaland without using the free hit. So that is something I thought about. But more importantly, I'm going to touch about the wildcard a bit later. Watkins. If you watch that game, like I said, Aston Villa, pathetic. Like, especially going forward, we thought maybe the introduction of Harvey Elliott would have changed something. It has been horrible going forward. In the top 7 leagues in England, Aston Villa are the only side not to have scored. The XG, I think, is less than 2.5. I think it is over 4 games now. Shocking. And now we also have Aston Villa Europe starting as well. So how are they going to, let's say, balance stuff out? I'm not too sure. But obviously very, very disappointing to owning Ollie Watkins. But at the same time, the fixtures over the next 3 are good. But am I really going to put myself through that? I think the answer is going to be no, because Aston Villa look poor. João Pedro, 7-pointer. I'll be honest, this is another position, again, where I think I got very, very fortunate in terms of João Pedro. You could probably say a quiet game. Obviously played up top for a large majority of the minutes that he was on the pitch. The assist to Cole Palmer, very, very fortunate. And then all of a sudden, he went from 0 bonus to 2 bonus. So with just 1 assist, very, very lucky in my eyes with that 7-pointer with João Pedro. Again, I did say in my team selection, are we really expecting João Pedro to go from a 70-minute man, how we thought at the start of the season, to now Chelsea picked up a couple injuries to a 90-minute man? And I thought the answer to that question was no, and I think it got proven. Obviously, this one was a bit difficult in terms of the international break coming into it with him playing for Brazil. But I'm not completely still sold on João Pedro's minutes, and that is something in a wildcard I'm not too sure. Looking at other positions, if I do wildcard in Game Week 5, I'm going to put myself through with picking João Pedro. But listen, let's look at my team and how it looks for Game Week 5 and just a couple, let's say, transfer plans that I might have. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's look at my team for Game Week 5. Of course, the first thing to worry about is Murillo. I think it looked like an impact knock that he got against Arsenal, but obviously only time will tell. But my initial plan was for this game week was to roll. But at the same time, I do have a couple of issues. And as I said, I do have a route to Haaland, which I probably won't make in Game Week 5. But obviously, looking at Game Week 6 is a potential that I could do without the free hit, without a wildcard, which was Ollie Watkins down to Erling Haaland. So it would look something like this. Okay, so this is how my team would look like in terms of I could move Murillo down to Van der Ven, Bruno down to Paqueta, and then obviously move Ollie Watkins up to Haaland. So this will be Haaland and Salah in the same team, and I could do this with free transfers. And obviously in game week 6, I could then move Gakpo down to Semenyo if I really wanted to, if I save another transfer. The reason I don't mind this is Murillo to a Van der Ven. My initial plan was to wildcard around game week 7, game week 8. Tottenham's fixtures from a defensive point of view until that point are very, very good. Bruno to Paqueta, obviously Bruno has Chelsea next game. That's a very difficult game. Paqueta, we expected him to be a 90-minute man. That wasn't the case. He came off early against Tottenham, and more importantly, he played up front. And I don't think that'll be a recurring theme going into the season or continuing on. But it was an issue that I think I had, especially in terms of Paqueta's then DEFCON potential, which is something we did lack with Paqueta. And then moving Ollie Watkins up to Haaland. I think with Erling Haaland, if you're watching him now, this is probably physically the best shape he's looked like in a very long time. Against Manchester United, he was causing them a hell of a lot of problems. And I think this is Erling Haaland back to his best now. I'm pretty certain of that. But the problem with this is I'm obviously going to be using all my free transfers, and it still leaves me with issues in my side in terms of Cucurella. I think now you probably do want an Arsenal defender in 3 clean sheets from the first 4. Very impressive. Sales is still my keeper. That is an issue. So do I want a David Raya, for example, in goal, Gabriel at centre back of the Arsenal double up potentially? I think that's a possibility. Midfield, listen, I'm not too sure if I was to wildcard if I would go with Salah as well. Just because I don't think Salah's reaching the same level that we would have expected Mo Salah to reach. So that is something I do want to keep an eye on. But at the same time, my initial plan was to wildcard in game week 8. And this is probably sounds like a bit of a ramble with my team. And it definitely is. So this is something I do want to think about if I was to wildcard early. But I don't, like I said, I don't feel like game week 5 is a brilliant week to wildcard. I don't think there's enough fixtures or like teams with fixture swings that I want to target. Game week 6 now for a wildcard, I think potentially sounds a bit more of a possibility. Because then obviously game week 6 wildcard, then you're probably targeting a Haaland, maybe a Reinders in my team as well against Burnley. But for now, listen, there's a lot of dilemmas. I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to think about what I'm going to do. Game week 5 wildcard draft will be out tomorrow because this is not something that I just want to make a draft to help you guys. It's something I want to look at myself in terms of how my team would look. But listen, if you guys enjoyed this video, it's probably sounded like a bit of a ramble. I'm very disappointed with this game week. 55 points all out. My rank dropped 1 million. I'm now at 2 million. So that is very disappointing. Of course, the one thing I would say regarding that my rank this week, I would say, I think 960,000 people played the wildcard. So this is me getting 55 points without any, let's say, transfers, without playing a chip. And I still have all my chips in place. So that is something that is a positive. There's still a lot to look forward to with my team. But let's see what I do. Game week 5, wildcard draft will be out tomorrow. Let's see what happens. Let me sleep on it, guys. Make sure you guys like the video, comment your thoughts on my team, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back tomorrow.